Welcome back, everybody, to Brew Pod Between the Lines podcast. This is your host, Caden Adsett, and quite a remarkable way to start the 2024 season for the Milwaukee Brewers, sweeping the New York Mets on the road, and a lot of positive takeaways from this series. A lot of good things that we saw on the offensive side, some really positive things that we saw on the pitching side, and overall it just seemed like the team came together. A lot of the young talent showing up, making some positive impact in these games, and already some roughing up between the two teams. We saw a bench clearing on opening day. We saw an ejection on the second day of the season, which we'll get into here pretty soon. But overall, just a lot of really positive things. Obviously, starting off the season with that sweep, going 3-0, and kind of some typical Brewers results. A lot of close game finishes, which we tend to see more often than not, seems like. And for the most part, no Williams, no problem. We had Abner Uribe with 2 saves on Friday and Saturday, and UL Payamps came in, got the save on Sunday. And so overall, like I said, just some really positive things that we saw from these games. And with that, we're kind of going to dive into the more specifics here of the games. And then we'll kind of talk about some of the more team-related aspects that I saw, some of the turning points that I saw in between the games and whatnot as well. But so to start off on Friday, that matchup we had Freddie Peralta versus Jose Quintana. And how about Freddie Peralta on his first opening day start? He goes 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit, and the whole pitching staff altogether only gave up 1 hit allowed on opening day. So that was just an excellent game. Not a lot of offense being produced from the Mets there. Brewers able to pick up quite a few strikeouts. So a lot of positives there from the pitching staff. And then offensively, a little bit of a slow start there. They had a threat there in the first inning. Jackson Chourio in his first major league at bat with a 4-pitch walk. And a heck of an opening weekend for him, being able to show his athleticism and he just makes the game seem so easy at such a young age, and it's really incredible to been able to watch him develop, and now we get to see him display that on a day-by-day basis in these first 3 games. Yeah, you saw for that first at bat was a 4-pitch walk, and then that followed right after that with his first career stolen base. We saw Yelich go 3 for 4 on opening day with a home run, RBI. And then Chourio's overall line, 1 for 3 with a walk. Like I said, that first major league hit, first major league RBI, stolen base. And then he also made a couple of really nice defensive plays out in right field as well. So that was really, really awesome to see him make such a quick impact. Jake Bauers led off one of those innings that we ended up scoring with a pinch hit double. Turang came in. He had a pinch hit bunt single. That was really good to see that develop in his game. That was one of the things, that I was kind of referring to in that last episode where I was talking about the Brewers being able to display their base running threat and their speed and athleticism to allow to get those pitchers in those jams. And Turang did just that by laying down that pinch hit bunt single. He was able to beat it out, and then it ended up setting up a first and third scenario with no outs for the Brewers, where we were able to end up cashing in. But yeah, just a lot of good things. I honestly think one of the turning points in this game I saw came in the second inning. Freddie Peralta had just given up that solo home run to Starling Marte, followed with a walk to the next hitter, and he was just kind of starting to get into those long counts, which can happen with Freddie when he's missing far out of the zone. They can get into those long at bats, and it seems like the more pitches that a batter sees in an at bat, it almost switches to being advantage hitter. But we saw William Contreras get a pickoff at first base, throwing behind the runner. Really nice job by Rhys Hoskins laying down the tag. they cut down that runner when it was just one out with a man on first, and it almost seemed like the momentum was really shifting in the Mets' favor, and that Freddie Peralta was kind of starting to get out of his early rhythm that he was in. But after that, I mean, after going over, like I said, that stat line, 8 strikeouts, I mean, he really dialed it in the rest of the game. 6 innings pitched, just the one hit. And so he had a very dominant game overall. But yeah, so Brewers win 3-1 in that first opening day game against the New York Mets, and then they followed up with the Saturday victory, 7-6. Contreras, after kind of a slow offensive day on Friday, went 3 for 5. Adames, after a bit of a slow day, went 2 for 5 with an RBI. And then Hoskins, which now that I think about it, I forgot to mention, of course, the bench clearing that we had in opening day, where we see Hoskins slide into second base there a little bit aggressively, make contact with Jeff McNeil, and McNeil obviously did not take favor to that at all. And, but I think Hoskins did everything, I think he did everything right. Yes, maybe the slide was a little bit aggressive. I don't personally think there was any intent behind it to, any harm extent. Did he go in maybe a little aggressive? Potentially. But I think he did the right thing. He kind of laid there, gave McNeil, a couple seconds to kind of get his words out, and then he got up, didn't engage in any confrontation, just kind of headed back towards the dugout, and then we just ended up seeing Jeff McNeil just seemed to kind of lose his cool through the entire inning and kind of carried into the dugout after that inning. But this anger obviously carried into the next game. But Hoskins came up to the plate in the first inning, being booed by the entire stadium, hit a 2 RBI single down the left field line, and then came back in the third inning, same thing, boos from the stadium, hits a towering fly to left field for a 2-run homer, and kind of quieted the crowd with each at bat that he was up. Ended up getting those 3 hits, 4 RBIs total. And in the 7th inning there, we saw the Mets pitcher Ramirez throw behind Hoskins, which, again, I think Hoskins did a great job of keeping his cool, staying content. He didn't end up charging the mound. He just kind of stood there, put his hand on his hips. And I think at some point we all kind of expected something to happen, something to come of it. But like I said, I think Hoskins really did a good job of treating the situation maturely. I think he did everything that was right from his mindset. You could kind of see him and Pat Murphy having a little conversation the inning before, saying, hey, there's a high probability that this is what's going to happen this inning. And I'm assuming the words exchanged there were, in the case that it does happen, just act right about it. Don't engage in anything that's going to get you in any trouble. And he did just that. And that ended up in a ejection of the pitcher, which then was followed by a 3-day suspension and a 1-game suspension to the head coach of the Mets as well. So in that case, everything turned out okay for the Brewers. No suspensions or ejections on their side. Like I said, I think they acted appropriately in that situation where, one of our guys, either Hoskins or somebody in the dugout, could have easily lost their cool, which could have ended up in a ejection or suspension following that, or anything that could have come of that. But from an offensive standpoint, those were the 3 key guys that I wanted to talk about: Contreras, Adames, and Hoskins. But the whole offense as a total, 16 hits, and they had brought up a graphic showing that was one of the top hit totals for the first 2 days. They had 8 tallied on Friday, 16 on Saturday. Through those 2 days, those 24 hits I believe we're 4th or 5th for all time for a Brewers couple of first 2 games. So that was awesome to see. Our offenses, as Brewers fans know, that's been one of our points of struggle in the past. But it seemed like everybody up and down the line was making an impact offensively on Saturday. And then we saw DL Hall, for the first time, seemed to have a little bit of a struggle. A lot of good swings from the Mets against him. I think one of the key plays in that game, Yelich cutting down Harrison Bader at second base to lead off the 4th inning. We had gotten up to that early lead. The Mets had kind of responded, and then we responded as well, but it kind of seemed like it was going to be this game of back and forth. But being able to cut down that leadoff runner in the 4th inning, which, credit to Yelich, he's not necessarily known for his arm. He's got pretty good accuracy for the most part, but he gunned it played it perfectly off the wall, made a long throw from left field, basically from the warning track all the way to second base. Also a great adjustment by Terang to go up and get the ball on a little bit of a high throw. And then they had him in plenty of time to get Bader at second base. And I think that kind of helped the Brewers in the following innings extend their lead. And then we ended up seeing a little bit of a slippage towards the end of that, where we were up 7-2, heading into the later innings there, into the 8th inning even. And we had Hobie Milner. Bryce Wilson actually came in first, struggled a little bit there, got some runners on with some trouble. Pat Murphy goes to Hobie Milner in the lefty-lefty scenario. He gives up a 3-run home run, makes it a 2-run game in the 8th inning. Then bringing back Abner Uribe for a second save opportunity in 2 days. And we see that, that home run to Pete Alonso makes it a 7-6 game. And then he was able to come back with a couple of strikeouts and finish out the game to get his second save in those 2 days. So good things from him, but a little bit of a concern maybe with some of those bullpen guys. Granted, it is still very early in the season, so it is a little bit expected to see some of that, spring training issues kind of carry into the beginning of the season. You hope to have had all those bugs and stuff out during spring training, but sometimes for some of the guys, some of that stuff carries into the first week, 2 weeks maybe into the season. But nonetheless, we came out on the winning end, 7-6 victory, which at that point had gotten us to 2-0, leading us into Sunday, where we won yet again. 4-1 was the final in that game. We saw some great things from Colin Rea. The start in that game went 5 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, allowed 5 hits, allowed 2 walks, and 1 earned run. Got himself in a little bit of a jam there in a couple of those innings, but he was able for the most part to wiggle out of some tough opportunities. Obviously, the big one there was Omar Narvaez came up with a former Brewer with the bases loaded, and Rea was able to get him to fly out to right field on a little bit of a you had to hold your breath there for a second on that fly ball hit to right with Churio kind of fading back. It looked like maybe there was a chance for that ball to get out, but I think he got it just off the end of the bat enough that it kept it in the ballpark. But great things from Colin Rea. That's kind of what I anticipated, and I anticipate some more of the same from him. I think, he showed that he's got a really good two-seamer, especially to lefties, that he's able to, work on the inside part and bring it back over the inside part of the plate. And then he's got that cutter that he's able to work outside to righties and work inside to lefties. And then he's got a really nice changeup that he's able to kind of complement that two-seamer and that cutter off of that. And we saw a little bit of all of that. Never really been too much of a high strikeout guy. Typically a lot of ground balls, which we saw exactly that. And that was another thing too. This whole series, our defense not allowing no errors at any point in any of the games. So a lot of good things defensively. Saw a couple of insane plays from Bryce Terang on second base, as we usually do. Was a Gold Glove finalist last year, and that defense we knew was going to carry into this year. It was just a little bit of some of those offensive struggles that we were a little bit curious about. But overall, he showed a really strong offensive series as well, including in Sunday's game. He went 2 for 4, came in for 2 runs in that game. Contreras again went 2 for 5 with an RBI. Adames 2 for 3 with an RBI, a couple of walks to go along with that. And then Chourio 2 for 4, including his first extra base hit as a Major League ball player, so congrats to him on that. And again, just a great series for the 20-year-old Chourio. Had some really nice defensive plays, and especially for him defensively in an outfield position, it's tough to come into these ballparks that you've never played in, and you have to learn how to, play, how the ball's going to come off the wall, how it's going to, play as far as, fly balls and whatnot, playing on the warning track and seeing, the different designs of the stadium. There's definitely some wonky ones there that the ball can, you can get yourself in a position where you run into the wall because you're just not as familiar with the stadium. So it's going to be interesting to see on these road games. He'll have some more familiarity with Milwaukee, considering that that's his home stadium. But that's always an interesting thing to watch with these new guys too, as they come up as rookies and they play in these road stadiums for their first time in their careers. There's a lot of learning out there because each stadium plays differently on balls off the walls and as far as fly balls goes as well. So it'll be interesting to see that aspect of his game. But overall, a really strong opening series, which I think a lot of us kind of anticipated and saw coming. He just makes the game look so easy. He's got such a smooth approach at the plate, and he just looks already so mature for being as young of a player as he is. So awesome to see that development. And then Brian Hudson, which I mistakenly left out in my last episode. I had mentioned him, but totally spaced that he is also another left-handed pitcher that we have out of the bullpen. I had mentioned that we only had one lefty in Hobie Milner coming out of the bullpen, but I must have blanked on that. But Brian Hudson, left-handed pitcher, came in. He dominated. Pitched the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning. No earned runs, 4 strikeouts, only 2 hits allowed. And then we saw Payamps come in the 9th inning and collect his first save of the year to give Uribe a day off after he had pitched in save opportunities and got saves in the prior 2 games. So overall, a lot of really good things. Like I said, a lot of really good things from the offense that we wanted to see, that we were hoping was going to carry in from spring training. And a lot of our guys did exactly that. Oliver Dunn had his first MLB hit. He had a couple of hits in this series. First Major League RBI for him as well. So congrats to him on that. Just a lot of positive, very positive things for the Brewers. Hitters drawing a lot of walks, high on base percentage, and it just seemed like their approach at the plate was very much improved from what, especially I've seen early on in the season in the past. Sometimes they just come out kind of free swinging, a little bit, maybe off balance, maybe not timing up the pitches very well, but they got in some deep battles. We got some guys on base, got pitchers in high-stress situations for the Mets, and it paid off. We did a really good job at cashing in on runners, scoring position, especially with 2 outs, which, that's always kind of a backbreaker for those pitchers. They get to 2 outs. They know they're 1 out away, and then you end up, getting a base hit, scoring a run, and those are big runs that can get left on bases, and we did a really good job at getting those guys in. So a lot of positives on that side of it as well. But yeah, like I said, not much more that any of us could have asked for from the Brewers as far as the opening series goes, with a straight sweep of the New York Mets, which is awesome. And one of the key takeaways that I had, that I know I had mentioned when I went over the opening day roster, was the Brewers' ability to steal and put pressure on these pitchers when they get on the base paths. Well, how about 8 for 8 on stolen bases in this series? Heading into, at least based on games played, Brewers led the MLB after Sunday, granted small sample, but led the MLB in total stolen bases with a 100% stolen base percentage as well. No caught stealings. There was one pickoff play for Sal Frelick on Sunday in the first inning, but that did not get scored as a stolen or a caught stealing. So Turang had what counted for 4 of those stolen bases, which that's what I was talking about with, even if he's not producing, even if he's not a 300 batter, but he's typically probably going to be in that 7, 8, 9 role in the lineup this year. And so if he's able to get on base, he almost seems like one of those guys that he's automatically in scoring position. So if he's able to get on base, that puts just an added amount of pressure on these pitchers. And we've got plenty of guys that did this. We had Yelich with a couple of stolen bases on Sunday, Churio with a couple of stolen bases in the series. So we saw a lot of positive things out of our offense, running the bases and their ability to get on base and produce runs as well. So pretty much a pitch-perfect opening weekend. Not much more anybody could ask for. And looking into tomorrow's matchup, we have Louis Varland versus Jacob Junis. We'll get the first look at him. And, of course, it'll be the Brewers' home opener for 2024. And then Wednesday, we've got Chris Paddock versus Joe Ross. We'll get a first look at Joe Ross as well. So a couple of new right-handed pitchers into the starting rotation that the Brewers are throwing out there against the Twins for their home opening weekend. And then that will be leading up to starting a series with the Seattle Mariners, which that'll be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. We'll have the day off on Thursday, and that then will proceed into a 4-game series on the road with the first divisional play against the Cincinnati Reds. So just a lot of positive things from this weekend are basically my main takeaways. Really good things on the base paths. Great defense with not giving the Mets any extra opportunities by producing errors. And we did a great job on offense taking advantage of those opportunities with base runners in scoring position with 2 outs. And, overall, there are a couple hiccups with pitching, specifically on Saturday. But otherwise, Friday and Sunday, from a pitching standpoint, seem to be just about perfect. So not really too many things that we can fix up on that end, and just a lot of positive takeaways from those starting pitchers and both the bullpen on those days. And, those Saturday hiccups, a lot of those things can carry into, some of these guys who came in for the first appearance since spring training, and some of these struggles and things that they were working on in spring training sometimes carries into the first couple weeks of the season. So sometimes you see some of these hiccups kind of early season, based on, especially with the bullpen and especially coming into their first appearances. But as we get into 2-3 weeks of play here, we'll get a lot better feel and see some more consistency out of these guys to see where they're going to be at. The one nice thing that I like about how this schedule plays out early season, obviously we have the day off today. We'll have the day off on Thursday after the 2-game series against the Twins, but it allows for our bullpen to get some rest, so we're not really overworking the bullpen early on in the season, because with a lot of these guys, once they get overworked and you get fatigued, it's a lot easier to get fatigued, I think, earlier in the season when you still don't quite have your stamina built up. Obviously, that's the point of spring training, to kind of help with that, but still sometimes the intensity of these regular season games, you just almost take on a little bit different, of a different energy level from a competition standpoint and whatnot. So getting those days off in there in between series allows our bullpen to kind of rejuvenate and whatnot. So that'll be nice to see. And like I said, as we get a few weeks in, we'll get a lot better feel for a lot of the guys in the bullpen, which I think will kind of determine, whether or not we start making some minor league moves to add some depth to the bullpen, or if we end up, even potentially sending some guys down and giving them some minor league stints. But we will see as we get to that point in the season. But also, before we leave here, I wanted to just quick go over the standings for the NL Central after we wrapped up the first series of the year. We've got the Pittsburgh Pirates on the top, played against the Miami Marlins on the road. They ended up starting out 4-0, so really good start for them. Then we've got the Milwaukee Brewers, of course, being 3-0. We got the Reds following that, going 2-1 against the Washington Nationals. We got the Cubs falling in at 1-2 after losing a couple games on the road against the Texas Rangers. And then the St. Louis Cardinals towards the bottom, with starting the season at 1-3. So obviously a very small sample size to start the year, but nonetheless just wanted to give some information on where we're at with that in the divisional standings. So with that, of course, BrewPod Between the Lines podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and other mainstream podcast sites. I can always be reached on social media using @brew_pod on Twitter, or searching BrewPod Between the Lines on Facebook or Instagram. I believe the next episode will be recorded on either Wednesday night or Thursday as we finish up the series against the Twins, and before we begin the weekend series against the Seattle Mariners at home. So it'll be fun to see the Milwaukee Brewers get a taste of any new updates to American Family Field, and also just get a first sight of the Milwaukee Brewers at home this year in the 2024 season. So that will conclude the discussion here, and hopefully you guys are able to get a listen in or watch the Brewers games here this week from wherever you may be. And with that, we will see you next time and talk to you soon.